Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about split brain in man. What split brain simply means is that the corpus callosum, a broad band of nerve fibers, is cut. The corpus callosum connects the two hemispheres of the brain and helps them communicate with each other. This procedure is typically done for patients with severe epileptic seizures in an attempt to isolate the seizures to just one hemisphere of the brain. Surprisingly, cutting the corpus callosum eliminated most of the attacks in the patients and created two independent hemispheres. This procedure gives us great insight as to what the corpus callosum really does. And it should be noted that surgery does not end up changing the temperament, personality, or intelligence of the individual. While surgery does not end up changing the temperament of the individual, there are differences seen in their everyday behavior. For example, patients seem to prefer the right side of their body over their left. And it's also important to note that after surgery, the dominant left hemisphere seemed to have more control for a considerable amount of time. In order to understand how the split brain worked, there were multiple types of tests done to test tactile and visual skills. Most of these tests resulted in similar findings. So instead of going in depth into all of them, I'll mention at least two tests that exemplify the results of the other tests performed. The first test is the tactile test, which involves sending auditory messages to the right hemisphere and seeing what the left hand would do. An examiner would mention an object or describe it, without directly naming it, and then the left hand would have a bag filled with objects to choose from. The patient managed to retrieve the correct object from the bag. However, when they were asked to name the object they pulled from the bag, they were unable to name the object that they had in their hand. And these results lead to the finding that the right hemisphere has less speech capabilities than the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere controls the right side of the body and is more analytical, while the right hemisphere controls the left side of the body and is more verbal and creative. The second test was a visual test that involved the flashing of red and green lights in the left and right visual fields. The patient then had to determine whether or not the light that was flashed was either green or red. When a light was flashed in the right visual field, meaning the left hemisphere had to process the image, the patient responded correctly with which color the light was flashed. When the light was flashed in the left visual field, meaning that the right hemisphere had to process the image, the patient could not verbally express what they saw. The evidence indicates that the separation of the corpus callosum produces two independent brains, which leads to two independent spheres of consciousness. And this idea can be particularly problematic for those that believe that the human consciousness is something that is not divisible. More research has to be done in this field to solidify these findings, but in the meantime, I want to thank you all for watching.
Created using Powtoon.